when the World Trade Centers were attacked. I was in Paris and I had to get back to America, and as soon as I got back I had to teach a class. And it was the first week, and as I sat there on my porch thinking about how I was going to teach a class and inspire children and do something very creative with art according to my curriculum, I realized I didn't really have any inspiration. I wasn't inspired, and I didn't know how I was going to inspire anyone else. So I came up with a plan that the only thing we could do was address what had just happened. And so I went to class that week and I looked at my students, 75 students, and said to them, we have a new project. I know that the curriculum said we were going to do X, Y, Z, but we have a new project because in these circumstances, there's something terrible and awful that we have to address. And the kids were really eager, although sad, to know what it was that we were going to do. And when I told them that they were going to place themselves in the minds and hearts of the children who had lost family, and that they were going to feel what it would be like to be in that situation, and that they were going to create from that point something that could bring comfort to those who had lost loved ones in the 9/11 attacks. And it was very remarkable to see in a matter of 2 weeks all the images, the quotes, the notes, the ideas that kids ages 7 to 18 came up with. So we put that all together and I then said we're going to make watercolor paintings. It seemed like an easy enough medium to work in, and so we did. And 2 weeks later, the watercolors that came out of those drawings were remarkable. They were extraordinary because the dedication and passion that each student gave to that piece of artwork was amazing. And so I couldn't believe we had so many successes, but then on the other hand, I could believe that because everyone was so focused and everything they had was poured into that artwork. So I showed it to a friend who then saw the work and was just so moved, and it was so profound. And he said, 75 paintings for 75 children wouldn't be enough, that the pain and the devastation and the amount of people affected were so much more than that, and we had to get into the hands of more children. So I asked him, what do you suggest? And Milan Hager then said to me, let's make a book. Then you can make thousands. And, I've never made a book before. So, but that was an extraordinary time where I was fully engaged and, rational thinking wasn't really in place. And I said, okay. And within a few months, we now had 3,000 books being shipped to America for the children of 9/11 to offer them peace, hope, and love and support from the children in Washington. So with all of that, we got the books published. It came to America, and then the next task was to get it into the hands of the families. And this was really challenging because there was a lot of chaos in the beginning. It wasn't easy to reach the families, obviously. And there's a lot of pain, and it was a very, very sensitive issue at the time. I mean, how do you connect with people? And that's when I had the very wonderful chance of meeting Mary Fetchett and contacting Beverly Eckert through Voices of September 11th, through an email conversation with the two of them. And I went to New York City with all these books and a small group of students to sort of deliver the artwork to the fire department and to deliver the books to the families. And my one connection to be able to give those books to the families was through Voices of September 11th. And from that point on, it was really, really easy. They would just let the families know that we had these books, and before you know it, emails were pouring in, and in no time, all the books that we had designated for the families were now gone and sent out to all of them. And the response we got back was, once again, amazing. It was profound. It was compelling, just miraculous. It's that human connection that people have, when they're trying to help each other. So that started it generated from that this idea that, well, we did the books, And as I went to New York City and saw the pain that the families were going through and understood right away that this healing process was going to take a lifetime, maybe they'd always have to endure this pain. And I slowly started to think, well, gee, we have children who love to make art and who love to give from deep inside themselves a gift of art to those who are hurting. So I decided that we didn't need to stop and that we would continue. So every year we continued to give voices, art pieces. And as the years progressed, we had various types of art projects. And then it started to evolve where students who really cared, I gave them the responsibility to lead an art project. So one year it was the box project with wonderful, surprising little gifts inside. And the boxes had themes in each artist. And it not necessarily was always a child, but everybody was invited to participate in this art project. Well, when the 10th anniversary rolled around, we'd been doing this now for 9 years, and the 10th anniversary rolled around. And I wanted, at this point, I'd traveled to New York a few times and have built relationships with family members there and had watched them growing through this process. And I felt like this was going to be a year where I wanted that art to be extremely personal, that I thought, wouldn't it be something if we could just, take the name of someone and create the art specifically for that person. And with Voices working so hard at working with those families and building the memorial, living memorial on their website, it became clear to me that we could easily do that because now the information about those who perished was being put out there, so we could read and we could honor and we could create around that. And so I thought, okay, so what would be a way to create art that could honor people yet not limit people to participate? What medium could we work in? Because painting is intimidating, and I thought, well, printmaking would be really, really good because any person could participate, and with a workshop work with them. If they didn't know how to draw, it didn't matter. We could help them. The main point was, did they have an idea around the person they want to honor? And I think anyone has that, if they have that thing in their heart to help somebody. So that was the thrust of that project. So what we did was we offered workshops, and I said, if you want to participate, sign up. And they got a name. Voices of September 11th provided us with 160 names to start. And so they got a name, and with that name they went to the Living Memorial and read about their person, learned about them, and from that they created imagery, and with that imagery it was then transferred onto a linoleum block, and then it was carved out by the artist. And then from that point I would take it along with Dan Cottrell and a few others. We would print flags, and the flags were based on the idea of those prayer flags. So I thought it would be neat to have flags. Each individual would have their own flag, their image, and their name. So the images were then transferred into the linoleum blocks, and then from that linoleum block, Dan Cottrell, myself, and a few others would print the flags, and we would then make prints for the family members so that they could have some art as well. We also decided that the blocks were also to be given to the family members so that in the future, if they want to make more prints of the art that was created based on their loved one's story, they could.
Well, it's just amazing to me to just come here and see the art that other people have created, and it's very moving. It just kind of recaptures that moment, and helps you remember what's happened, and as they say, never forget. And this helps keep that in our memory. There's a lot of people out there that's important to do this for, and are still trying to recover and move past this.
I made this to represent all the smiles because she made, when people looked at her smile, they made her, people laughed.
It's amazing what's done, and especially this time to hear the children's take on the art they're doing. It's just been amazing.
It's kind of a dual, viewpoint we have, and not only a fire service perspective, but this is a real human perspective. It's amazing. This is an amazing project and connection.
Well, this guy was into the Yankees, and he'd be in the living room, and Liz would be in the kitchen, and when the Yankees would hit a home run, he'd yell, "Liz, stay in the kitchen for good luck." So Liz barely ever got to see the Yankees actually do anything good. So I put the Yankees logo, the hats, and a bat, and Liz, stay in the kitchen, and quotes.
So the guy that I have, his name is John, and I believe it's pronounced Kehohani. His family called him Jack. He was a lawyer, and he worked at the World Trade Center. He actually made it out alive, called his mom and had a conversation with her. He called his partner, had a conversation with him, and then they never heard from him again. And they discovered that he was actually hit by falling concrete and died immediately. And that was just the most heartbreaking story. I couldn't imagine as a mom knowing he was okay, feeling that sense of relief, and then hearing later that he actually did die, and it really, really broke my heart. I really connected when I read his sister Darlene's eulogy, because Jack, he loved flowers, which I love. He loved roses for his mother. He always sent his mom roses, carnations for his grandmother, and he personally loved sunflowers and gladiolas, and I absolutely love all of those flowers. The way I really connected with Jack was his sister talked about how he took great care of his mother. He would visit her at Christmas, and he would make sure all the decorations on her Christmas tree were absolutely just so. And if anybody knows me, the decorations on my Christmas tree are always just so. It's so bad that I've created monsters in my children. They will redecorate if I haven't done a good enough job. Jack also liked, pictures had to be hung just so, everything had to be just so, and that is absolutely the way I am. So I loved learning that about him. He also loves California. His parents both live there, and I love California. So I really connected with him, and so what I did is I did his 4 flowers to represent his mother and his grandmother. The dove represents him. And this back here I got from the California State Seal. It shows water in the island, and I did a setting sun just to sort of represent Jack and the sun setting on his life.
The person that I did my tribute flag for, his name is Charles Karczewski, and the interesting thing about him is that he was really well-rounded, and he was very interesting, and he loved his job, and I really admired his character and his personality, and I felt like I was very similar to him. And so what I did was I carved some mountains and a skydiver that was falling. You can see it right here. And I chose the mountains because he was very outdoorsy, and he liked hiking the Grand Canyon, kayaking, and all these sorts of things. And I thought that the mountains were something that he would appreciate because they're always filled with beauty and new things that you can look at. And then I chose skydiving because that was also one of his hobbies, and I felt like that kind of showed his adventurous personality and that it showed who he was the most. And then I also carved the word life because he was filled with spirit and life, and obviously affected the people around him, even his dogs, like to this day.
The young woman that I am doing artwork for is Jennifer Fialco. I actually chose her. I asked if I could choose her because in 2006, when we went to New York with the Box Project, the Friendship Box Project, I met her parents and her brother. Her brother took one of the boxes I made, which was a garden scene. It had a garden theme and sunflowers on it. He was especially touched by the sunflowers on the box because she loved sunflowers and would give them out to friends who needed them or wanted to brighten their day. And so the next day they came back to the forum and brought a plaque with them that was replicated from a plaque that hung in her apartment. And they had several made, probably hundreds made. They gave them out to very many people. So this is actually Diane's plaque, but it looks, mine is exactly the same, and it says "Love lives here." So it just represents that she was a very loving person, very giving, very caring, very interested to know how people were doing, and I could identify with that.
Well, I had the opportunity to actually choose a name. There were about 8 names that hadn't been chosen yet, and I looked down and Haggai Sheffy stood out to me because it sounded like somebody who maybe wasn't American, or their ethnicity was something different. And sure enough, he actually is quite a well-known man. He was born and raised in Israel. That's where he was from. His father was a retired brigadier general of the Israeli army. And I looked up his name. In Israel alone, there's several memorials set up for him and for other victims of 9/11. I began to realize that this man really had a huge impact, a huge circle of influence. But what struck me the most was his wife's note to him that she wrote about 4 or 5 years after his death. And she spoke of how much she loved him and how they were best friends, and she wanted to think like him and feel his presence. And I saw pictures of him with his 2 darling little children. And so as I thought about what could I possibly create that would mean something, I thought about what makes me feel good. And it's the breeze in the trees and hearing the leaves rustle and the warm sun. And so I thought of a tree, which was kind of insane with all the leaves, but I persisted, and then of course the sun just bringing happiness. But a tree to me represents ongoing life and growth, and I think about his children and his influence and how that will carry on. But a tree is also strength, which he was for his families, their strength and their shelter. And I carved his name in the trunk, Haggai, and a heart, just for his wife, to represent their love and their friendship that is enduring. And I thought a lot about the ground, because I'm thinking I can't have all these vertical lines. And then I thought about a picture I had seen in Israel. It was very arid there, of course, and there were tiles all around this little tree in a park. I thought, that's perfect. I'll make the tiles around the base, just kind of my way of saying, I don't know, just acknowledging maybe Israel or where he came from, or memorials that are set. So there was a lot that it is a simple design, but I felt like that best expressed my heart for them, and I hope that that's pleasing to them.
So 160 flag, I believe over 700 printings to get there for the 10th anniversary, over 125 volunteers. Levian Brink was my administrator of this project. Natasha Bybee was the one who administered the database. I mean, there was a lot of complexity and details that had to be dealt with, and certainly I wasn't going to be the one to do that. It's not my forte. But those 2 were amazing, how they carried out the details, every name spelled correct, every flag appropriated with the right spelling and name and everything. Packaging, getting it all ready to get to New York City. It was quite a big undertaking, but we did it, and we had a fantastic time. I think the best part of that project for me was people would come into the workshop and they'd have their name, and I'd see the picture of their person, and then they'd have their idea that they were going to carve, and I would say, tell me their story. And so all of a sudden they'd tell me the story of the person, and I could see the image and I could see the correlation, and it was just amazing what people who never created, didn't do art, could come up with, you know. And I thought, what an amazing thing. The lives of those who perished 10 years later are speaking to us here in the studio and affecting us, and what comes out of that is this amazing piece of art. And there couldn't be anything better than sitting here hearing all those stories.
been going on for 10 years, and it grows. And Diane, I kind of call her the general because she's got an army behind her who supports a lot of the efforts that go on for this. And it really is an amazing project, and I just wish I could be there at Ground Zero on the 10th and the 11th to watch the families receive these gifts that all of you have created today. Because it really is giving a part of yourself, your time, your energy, your effort, and many times your money to help create a tribute to the families of that. And so I just want to say thank you for all of you for doing it. Diane really didn't give me a chance to really create it. She says you will make one, which is probably the case for some of you who's roll in the room. But the most inspiring thing about Diane is she is a true visionary leader in the sense of saying, let's create something that we can share with a lot of others. So, you know, this project continues to grow and continues to evolve, and I can just see this really taking off in the next few years and becoming something that really inspires other communities to do something like this. So Diane, thank you for putting this together, and thank you for letting me be part of this as president.
Thank you.
To bring the flags and hang them up, it was just incredible to walk through and look after we had hung them and to remember all the different stories that were told about all the different people who had perished. And, you know, those folks that had amazing lives. And it's really neat to be able to know that that story can continue through the work of Voices of September 11th and their living memorial. And those stories impacted us as well and gave us pause as we thought about our own lives. And we said to ourselves, we can be better people and we can do more in life, and we are inspired because we are hearing the stories and working with the stories of the families. So that was a tremendous project, and I loved how personal it was, and I loved how people embraced it and how we were like a team here.
Oh my
I'm gonna bring your in. If I take one of these, please do. Yeah.
There were people who came to the family forum during the 10th anniversary and wanted their loved ones remembered as well and wanted a flag. So we took their names and said, okay, well, let's just continue. And then I thought, well, we've already done 10 years, a decade of art, and we love to do art. So why stop? And why not just continue this process every year, give people an opportunity to remember. It doesn't take a lot to remember the people who have perished, to tell their stories and create art for the next 10, maybe 15 years, whatever it would take to finish all the names. If I reflect way back when I stood on my porch and had no inspiration, and I finally found that I do have inspiration today, and I know where that came from. It came from the lives and the stories of those who perished. Their stories once again made me understand and appreciate life, friendships, people, and community.